Fun. All right, welcome into BuffaloPlus.com and Buffalo Plus on YouTube. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. We are one step closer to the Bills playoff game against the Colts on Saturday at 1 p.m. Today, Mike, we heard from Sean McDermott or Josh Allen as well, some of the players. What were your takeaways from what they said this afternoon as they get ready?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway was that Houston from a year ago is still on their minds. Mm-hmm. However they express it. Josh Allen, and we're going to run some of that this week, the things he said right after that game.
Yeah.
It was, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to learn from it. I don't think there's any question he did. I mean, they walked off that field, just a decimated team, in part because they lost a playoff game. I mean, let's be honest, the playoffs, okay. But it's the way they lost. It was a game they were in control of. Mm-hmm. Game they looked for the first half as good as they've looked all year. And you know what play I was thinking of from that game was that strange second half kickoff when they let it go in the end zone. The Bills picked it up, and it could have been a touchdown, and instead they ruled it a touchback. But that, I won't say that wins the game for the Bills, but it might have.
Yeah,
another touchdown. So anyhow, I think so. Do you think that that's kind of on their mind?
I think it has to be, just knowing what happened last year and the talk that was afterwards, not by the Bills, but just the outside perspective of Buffalo falling apart and kind of the jokes that were made. We have some comments rolling in. Thanks everyone for joining us here tonight. But if I'm Josh Allen, I would think, man, I don't want it to be like last year. And he's said so much on the fact that he feels like a different player. Obviously, the stats are so much different. Having Stephon Diggs out there is a huge improvement in his ability, that he seems so much more comfortable. And I think we've seen, like, we always knew he had the arm talent, obviously. But I feel like this year we just saw the maturation process of his decision-making.
Yeah.
And his ability to really find those windows and exploit them, but to not always take that aggressive play.
Yeah. And what else we've seen out of him was it doesn't matter if they play zone or man against him. I mean,
that's huge too. Yeah.
I will say one thing's an issue. Dan Walker said, good evening to you too, Dan. He said, who's not playing? Cole Beasley's not playing. I mean, that's official. That's just informed speculation, right? Sean,
I completely agree. Yeah.
He didn't practice today. I don't think Kenny Stills is playing in the game, but they brought him in, I mean, because you don't want to be caught short. You're already going to be short if he's not back this week or, as they advance, if they advance. But it's not looking good that Cole Beasley will be on the field.
And I think Sean McDermott saying this week that there is no update on Cole Beasley is not an encouraging sign for that. Him saying that he's still week to week, I think proves that he is still, further away from rejoining the team. But I will say, I think you saw Isaiah McKenzie really take that step. Yes, it was the Dolphins game, but Miami was obviously playing for something. You saw him coming out of the slot a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would love to have Beasley back, the security blanket that he has been for Josh this entire season. But there are other weapons on this team. Maybe they don't have the same experience level as Cole Beasley, but I think that this offense has obviously been productive. And so you'd love to have him out there, but I don't think I don't want to say it's not the end of the world that he's not out there, but at the same point, you have other players that can pick up some of that slack if everyone does that.
You make a great point about Isaiah, because we're not talking about a bench player or a special teams player or a practice squad guy that's getting elevated. We're talking about a guy who's had substantial snaps this year. He is part of the offense. Yeah. And now you're talking about him playing a little bit of a different role. Josh Allen's comfortable with him. They look pretty good together Sunday, which is great.
Yeah.
But I guess Cole Beasley has been so important to them in big moments. Earlier in this year, the big 3rd and 22 against the Rams and, key catches. He had big ones against the Jets in that game when they were struggling. And I just think he's that important to them. Now, Josh finds whoever's open. I mean, Gabe Davis had 7 touchdowns this year. I mean, he's the 4th receiving target on a team with the number 1 pass catcher in the NFL, and he's got 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. So, I think it's a difference. You want Cole Beasley on the field, but you make a good point that, he does have a guy in Isaiah McKenzie who is physically, he can do a lot of the same things. He's quick, good in small spaces and all, but I think the routes will be different. I think they'll use him different. He's also a little more maybe elusive than Beasley. If that's even the right, I don't even know. They're both quick in short spaces. But obviously we saw that kick return out of him. So that's pretty impressive.
Also, if anyone has a question, we see some questions rolling in. We'll get to those. But if anyone has a question about this upcoming week or the game on Saturday, again, the game is on Saturday.
Yeah.
Some people were asking about the game on Sunday. Game is on Saturday. Kickoff at 1 p.m. I saw a question. Mike Canton. Sorry if I mispronounce. Is it harder for Frank Reich to play against the Bills strictly because of his past? Mike, I want to ask you, considering obviously you're familiar with him.
Yeah. He even mentioned it this week. Obviously, he loves Buffalo. I think he said 2 of his daughters were born in Buffalo. Yeah. Bills fans love him. I mean, he was that guy. He played against the Bills. He's played against them. He's coached against them. Mm-hmm. And he said something like, I think I've gotten a lot of that, out of myself, that part of the emotion. He's also walking into a stadium where he won't be having people come up and greet him who knew him from before, yelling to him or all those things. None of that's happening. Yes, there's going to be 6,700 people there, but that's not like 67,000. Yes. So I think it's not hard for him now. I think probably the first time he walked back there as an opponent probably felt strange, but it's also now been years since he was a player, and he's only randomly come back to Buffalo for different things. So in fact, the day of the reunion of the team that won the comeback game, I was fortunate enough to MC that on the field that day, which was nerve-wracking, to say the least, with a packed house. And I had to introduce a video of Frank because at the time he was the Eagles coordinator. So he's been around the league. My point being, like, even on that day, he couldn't be there. He'd been the Chargers guy coming back to Buffalo with Phillip Rivers, by the way. No. I don't think it's that hard for him, but I think he's the kind of guy that'd be, rooting for the Bills and Bills fans if they're not in it. I think for the fans, maybe more than anything.
I agree. I see some good comments rolling in. Hogg saying, talking about Cole Beasley, I'd be more worried if we didn't have Smoke back, which is a great point. I think he adds something to the offense. Emily saying Stephon Diggs didn't practice. He has an oblique injury, and McKenzie didn't practice because of an ankle. What do you make of that? Because let's just give him a day, I think. I agree. There's been a day. Dan Bates is not here because he's having a veteran rest day.
Yes, and deserves it. We gave him the night. So no, I think those guys will be fine. I think tomorrow. Now it is a different week because the game comes up on Saturday. So think of this Tuesday as more like a Wednesday. And Jenna, all year long, we've seen these Wednesdays be, this guy's not practicing.
Yeah.
And then on Thursday, they go full. I think both those guys will be fine. I think that's the impression, that they'll be fine. So, yes, but anytime you see a guy's name pop up on the list. Now, we had a couple other questions because you don't want to be on the other list. And we saw what happened to the Browns. And that's very real. And the players were talking about that. The COVID thing is a concern for all these players. Definitely. And, I mean, you do feel for the Browns. I saw a thing where I think Stefanski handed the football after the game to Latino, the offensive lineman. The guy's a Pro Bowler. Both of them have COVID. I'm not saying it had anything to do with the actual football, but But I'm saying is there's a guy who's been through a lot of this garbage in Cleveland, and now he's finally made it. And the guy who's a candidate for coach of the year finally gets Cleveland in there, and he's not going to coach the game. So, Jenna, the Bills players, it's a real worry. And I think it was it Poyer who said today, there's also the worry about the false positives.
I mean,
because that could keep you out.
Well, that to me is almost worse because you are not, I mean, I shouldn't say that because it's obviously upsetting to be.
Would it be when you got it would be the important thing.
Yeah. But I mean, I think this Brown situation is another reminder that this is so real. And this is a huge part of the playoffs and how teams adapt and how safe they're being and how that can all catch up. I mean, even with the Brown situation, it stinks to hear that because you know how huge of an impact that will have on the game. And the teams make it this far, you know, the Browns having their first playoff appearance since the early 2000s. And it's like, that is tough to hear. But, you know, I think it's also another reminder for the Bills of being, hey, we got to be super locked in. I think obviously they kept it very serious throughout the year, but I think it's another opportunity for them to have the teaching example, specifically Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. Like, we work too hard to have something like this happen.
Yeah. Chris Spencer just sent a message and he said, the Browns have had multiple cases and shutdowns. Clearly they don't take it as serious as others. So many teams have had it smoothly. What are the Browns not doing that everyone else is? You know, you might be onto something there, and it doesn't have to be a bulk of the team. But I'm a big believer in peer pressure for this. I'm a big believer in when your leaders. I mean, Jordan Poyer says, "I'm a homebody. I'm home." Yeah. Micah Hyde, I'm home. Who's not listening to Hyde and Poyer on this team, right? And it's kind of like he said, "Look, at maximum, we got 5 weeks left. Like, we're going to try to be smart." Now, things can still happen, and you don't know. And here's the head coach getting it for the Browns. Like, we don't know. And you don't know what their family situation is. You know, if he's got kids and, you know, the kids go out and they're around a friend. I mean, all kinds of stuff that can happen. So and you do feel for them. But the offensive lineman, I was thinking, like, imagine for the Bills a few years ago, it would have been Kyle Williams not playing in the playoff game. You know, a guy who's been around during the drought. Yeah. And, you know, that's the kind of guy you feel for because I don't know if he's feeling anything, if he's sick at all or whatever. He just tested positive. But to not be able to play and it's not like a regular injury has to be tough.
No. I actually just watched on one of my Instagram feeds, they had Kyle Williams' last game against the Dolphins and how the entire stadium. And it made me realize and remember, like, what that atmosphere is like. And I know on Saturday, like, fans are getting tested. I think tomorrow is when fans start getting tested. Correct, Mike?
Yes.
For the 6,700 that can be in the stadium.
Can be at the game. Yes, that is the case. In fact, I'm getting tested tomorrow to go up to the game. Just so fans are aware, that has not been the case for media. Yeah. We've been filling out the form, much like when Jenny's been up there for games and also for practice, and we've had to fill it out because we're isolated. We're isolated from everybody else, and I don't think any of that's going to be any different. They stick us all in the press box, and then we go on Zoom calls. But at the same time, you know, it is one of those things that is. Oh, I'm sorry, Nick. Did you want me to tell everybody what you said?
I'm literally blushing. Also, I want to comment. I did not hunt that, but my dad did, and he's 6'3", so yeah. He's a terrifying man.
Yeah. Oh, guys, really, do not talk about me that way, okay? Yeah, it gets more embarrassing. Leave me alone.
I did see Jim has a comment. Where is Dan? Dan has a nice Veterans Day off.
Yeah, Veterans Day off. So,
hey, I know I'm red. I blush very easily. Okay.
Oh, please. She seeks out comments all the time like that. By the way, tomorrow our scheduled plan is to have a guest on our Buffalo Plus YouTube page. Who is a sports anchor in Indianapolis and has covered the Colts for a while, but he also has upstate New York I'll say Central New York, upstate. He went to Syracuse and worked in Syracuse for a while. So Anthony Calhoun's scheduled to be on the show with us tomorrow night. And what I really do want to get an idea of what the Colts are thinking, what fans there are thinking. I am fascinated now what people think about the Bills. After many years where the only thing they said about the Bills was, oh, it's really cold in Buffalo. Like, yeah. Okay. We know that. So, so that's the case. Boy, Nick, you're trying hard, man. Settle down.
There was, I did see one comment. I can't remember who said it, but someone was asking, we should talk about the run game since Dan is not here.
Well,
now, we don't expect the offense to run through the Bills rushing game on Saturday.
But the Colts run game is
good.
For Seinfeld fans, it's real and it's spectacular. Because it is. I mean, they can run the ball. That's what they do. By the way, I say that and they do run it, but Phillip Rivers, he had 24 touchdowns, which is okay. It's not, it's not Pro Bowl level. He threw for 4,100 yards this year.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not Josh Allen, but it's not a dink and dunk. I should take that back. They do throw short. They get some good yards after the catch. But, they do have a decent to good passing offense. It's efficient. It's that team, Jenna. That team is smart and efficient and does a lot of things well. They're not explosive, but they're good.
I think they are good. I think, to me, what stands out about them, though, is sometimes in those second halves, they let other teams come back into it. And you think you saw it against Jacksonville. Like, they're a team that I feel like kind of reminds me of the Bills in the past, where it's like, okay, we got the lead, we'll settle down, we'll be a little bit more conservative. Whereas, obviously, this team this year is foot on the gas basically at all times. But that makes me curious of how they will come out on Saturday.
All right, so I'm going to put Matthew's comment up there. He says, I'm not nervous about Rivers at all. The man is a dinosaur. Yes, he is an old man in the NFL, and he ran for 3 yards. Yeah, I mean, that's who he is. I will say this, though. The one thing he has going for him, he has won 5 playoff games in his career.
Yeah. He
has that experience. That's the only thing holding me back from total commitment to what Josh and this offense can do. It's just they haven't won in this setting yet. I think they're winning. I think we're picking them to win. I'm not speaking for you or Dan, but I like them in this matchup. But we haven't seen them win in this, and it was that's why I would be feeling a little differently if they would have survived that Houston game last year and already had a win under their belt, because it is pressure. I mean, we talked about it on our podcast. By the way, our full podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeart, wherever you get them, for the audio version. When you're out walking the dog, riding in the car, whatever it is, check that out. Plus, we also posted the video version, so you get to see Dan and I. That's on YouTube here, that you can see that too. So, and we talked about the pressure. Jenna, there's pressure on this Bills team.
Oh, 100%. And this is a situation where now, with the way they've played 13 wins for the first time since 1991, you have that on your back. You have that on your shoulders. Josh Allen, he did not win last year. Can he win a playoff game? You have those narratives of guys that have struggled in the playoffs. Andy Dalton, of will that follow you? Now, I'm not saying that Josh is Andy Dalton, but at the same point, those things, Lamar Jackson, they follow you.
They do.
And I think this year, this team is in such a different place. And I actually loved that Josh said today, Josh Allen said post-practice, he talked about how he's not that he's happy Houston happened, but he's happy that he could take the lessons he could from it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard to realize when things like that and situations like that happen, because I think that for him was a crucible moment.
Didn't you tweet something that he said about you can't? What did you say? I thought you had a tweet about a quote from Allen today, like something about losing. I'm not remembering it that way, but something about learning from.
I didn't tweet anything about Allen today, actually, because I I was on the conference call, but I was not tweeting on it.
Okay, maybe it was Dan.
Dan tweeted something.
Dan tweeted. I think it was Dan who tweeted something about Allen today. By the way, it's 6,700 at the game. If they allow, they would double the attendance if Phillip Rivers brings all his kids to the game, right? I mean, he does have 10, right?
So many children. So many children. Mike is fire. Look at Steve's comment. Mike is fire. It's true.
See? It's all about the looks.
Mike is a total babe, PJ.
Yeah, thanks. I'm definitely all it was I'm definitely not over it. I think it is good that he admits he's not over it. He shouldn't be over it.
No.
And play with that. Be mad. Go out there and play better. And the shame of it last year was it was like he had gotten that all under control and he played so well for a while. The whole team did. And then DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson and they started to take over and the crowd got into the game. That was the difference too. They're at home and it's different. It's different when you are home, even with. So yes, they don't have to deal with the crowd, but the Bills are also in their setting where they've been great all year to date too.
I think that solidified to Josh that he doesn't have to do it all himself. I think that hero ball you'd see come out at times, and especially in that game, the lateral or trying to throw it to Pat DeMarco 30 yards down the field. I think that was kind of an embarrassing way to be like, Josh, you can't do this alone. And then getting Stephon Diggs. I actually don't know. Did anyone out there read the Deion Dawkins?
Yeah, it was good.
First of all, could you not hear Deion saying it as I was reading? I'm like, I can hear Deion, but he talked about the trade for Stephon Diggs and how the collective team that there's around each other was like, wow, that's a move. That's a move that signifies expectations are now raised. Yeah,
I could hear him saying, Stephon Diggs, I didn't know somebody could be that good at football. That was great. That was great stuff. And sometimes I'm disappointed by some of those first person articles because, not Deion. He doesn't disappoint that way. And he really is a team guy. And he's really excelled. I remember doing the preseason games and I was on the field in Philly and Deion was playing and I was talking to his whole family was up in the stands. And I said, I think Deion's going to start the season. Yeah. And they were like, you think, and they were like, we're hoping, whatever. And he must have had 12 people at the game. And they were all like, we're hoping, whatever it is. And then, we got off to a good start. And then, he might have taken a step back. And then he got back again. And I think he's been a great Bill. And I think he's going to be here for a long time.
And he waves the flag for Buffalo.
Yes.
And I think I honestly think that's so important because we haven't seen in the past people do that as much.
Yeah.
And he's certainly one that loves playing in Western New York. But the piece was pretty cool.
Anton said about that was a bad call on Cody Ford. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
I hate that call. And it was a bad version of that call. But that was a huge thing at the end of that game. But all those things being said, the Bills put themselves in that spot. They know it.
Yeah.
They know it. They had that game under control and then they let it go. And by the way, you were wrong on the pass to Pat DeMarco 30 yards downfield. It was more like 45. It was a Josh Heave into coverage pack. So
you guys were in Houston. I was screaming at the TV in the sports office.
It was a strange day, man. That was something. We really thought they were going to win. I really thought they were going to win. You remember they got off to the great start.
Yeah, John Brown had the touchdown.
So the Bills' only touchdown pass, the only touchdown they've scored in the playoffs under Sean McDermott is a John Brown pass to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Because in the game, and I was at the game in Jacksonville, we were there for that. Remember? And they didn't score. They didn't get close to scoring in that game.
Nathan Peterman came in later on.
Yeah, Rod got hit at the end. That was not pretty. But that team, okay, look at those real quick. And I know we're going to wrap it up here in a second, but look at that real quickly. That was a team just thrilled to be there. The event was getting there. Last year's team had a feel of one that could get in and knock somebody off. Mm-hmm. Probably the way maybe the Browns feel now, or who would you say is another, I'm trying to think. Well, the Titans showed it last year. Like, you get in and feel like you can do some damage.
Yes.
That's not who this Bills team is now. I don't think they're like thinking ahead because they haven't had that experience, but they believe, you say it all the time, Jenna, that this is their first playoff game. I think that's the way they're thinking without looking past the Colts. I wouldn't look past the Colts.
No.
You're playing them any other week,
Yeah. There's a way to look at it where you respect the Colts and what they bring to the table and the fact that you have to take every game obviously seriously, and then the realization that you want more than just
JD just said, I said wrap it up, and he said he just got here. Just keep in mind that this session will also be posted right on to Buffalo Plus, so you can watch it.
We're going to be doing this all week.
Yeah.
Get ready for the post. How do I keep saying post game? As we get ready for the postseason. Man, I said that the Bills were AFC champs instead of AFC East champs. Can't see.
You're just steps ahead. Well, Jenna and I were at the Super Bowl a year ago in Miami. We'll have to see. And it is in Tampa. And
I go to Tampa.
Yes, I was at the Super Bowl in Tampa.
Yeah.
The first one the Bills went to. It would sort of be fitting that they would go.
About that. It's like full circle, right?
Full circle, because we're talking decades later, and everything is, there's nothing different. Not even the stadium is the same down there. So everything is different. So maybe it is. Maybe they go back. But it starts with a game against the Colts on Saturday.
I like Richard's comment. Buffalo hasn't looked past anyone. They've just gone straight through them.
That's great. That's really true. And they, all these steps when they could have gotten by, like the Chiefs are doing that, but don't get too worked up over that. The Chiefs have shown they can win a Super Bowl. So you're not trying to really prove that in the regular season. They're just winning. They know they can beat anybody. I think the Bills feel that way. The Chiefs know that because they've done it. But to his point, man, the blowing out of the Niners, blowing out of Denver, blowing out of the Patriots, when that was they just destroyed them. And then what they did to Miami when the Dolphins needed the game. I mean, I know they took Josh out of the game. I don't want Joe Judge to get too upset about it. The fact that they took the quarterback out of the game, but don't get me going on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can.
I got enough issues with Doug Peterson's idiocy, let alone Joe. I speak for the NFL judge with his 6-10 record. So anyhow, I
feel like if you were to see Joe Judge just walking on the street, most NFL fans would not be able to pick him out.
Well, they might now, because I believe he thinks his face is on the logo now. He's like Jerry West for the NBA. It's Joe Judge. I've been here 10 minutes and I'm going to speak for everybody. By the way, Torrey Smith, the NFL wide receiver, posted something today and said, I don't think that's quite accurate the way most players feel about week 17 games when the season's over.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those guys are like, yeah, we want to win. We want to get out healthy. We want to go home. But regardless, that's just me pontificating at the end. So.
All right. You want to wrap up here?
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. Again, we're going to be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll let you tell everybody where everything is.
Yeah, so you can check us out on buffaloplus.com as well as Buffalo Plus, our YouTube page. We also, if you're in the Rochester area, we're on 13 Wham. You can catch our reports there. Dan will be back tomorrow. We'll be all three of us. We'll also have a special guest coming up later on in the week, a reporter who covers the Colts, a beat reporter with Central Western New York ties. So some New York flavor as well. But for Mike, I was about to say and Dan, but Dan said.
Yeah, we can always include.
Okay, for Mike and Dan in spirit, who's enjoying his night off, I'm Jenna. We will see you tomorrow night.